Hey everybody, this is Jurius Doctor back again for the second part of this video on getting started as a new bro. You can see here that as you sign in after leaving the game for a break in mid-tutorial, you'll get prompted by this friendly reminder to start the tutorial again. It asks, would you like to keep playing it? The tutorial is only provided once, and you won't be able to restart it later on. So as a new player, this is an opportunity for you to be able to pick back up and continue playing through sort of the introductory storyline and initial missions to help orient you on some of the basic mechanics of the game. I'm going to be going through some of this now to just continue to show you how it works, and I'm going to talk through the whole way. Some basic commentary and anecdotes and stuff that you might find interesting, and any comments on introductory game mechanics I think you should know. The contents of these videos isn't particularly unique. It plays in with a lot of the contents of the educational videos I've created and the core materials that I've recorded for EVE University. A lot of what you're going to see here isn't anything special, so let's get started here, and yeah, let's just continue with the tutorial. So now we have to head back to this research outpost now that we fit our data analyzer. As you recall, we had to make one as part of our last video. And we've manufactured one and fit it to our ship. And one of the upgrades that we have over our previous setup was that we added a railgun and some ammunition. We still have our civilian Gatling gun, and in the hold of the ship I still have my civilian mining laser and some extra antimatter charges so that I can deal damage. Civilian weapons and some other weapons such as beam lasers and pulse lasers for a MAR do not use ammunition in a typical sense. They don't exhaust the ammunition. You put an ammunition load in and it uses it, but they don't degrade until you get into faction ammo or Tech 2 ammo, which I'll cover in a later video. But civilian weapons don't use ammunition. However, they also don't do a ton of damage. You can see this one here is only creating about 3.5 or 3.9 damage per second, and here we have almost 3 times that amount at 12.9 DPS per second, 4 times as much. So you can see this single gun is providing me quite a bit of extra ability to deal damage. Now, obviously, the first question you're going to ask yourself is, why don't I just fit 2 of these and do even more damage? And that's a great answer. Great question and a great answer is that yes, you can do that. You can absolutely fit 2 equal guns on your ship. You should ideally be firing 2 guns of the same type. So here I have a railgun and a railgun. You don't want to mix your weapons. You don't typically want to be firing, missiles off of one turret or hardpoint and short range guns off of another. You want to make your damage type and application consistent so that you know how you're going to apply your damage when you're in combat. Now, a lot of these early missions are fairly easy to survive. Some of the agency stuff that I've tested out for the upcoming changes to the new player experience in the Singularity test server have given me reason to believe that new bros who get started, you're going to want to know how to fit your ship. And I'm going to cover a little bit of basic fitting after we run through some of these final parts of this mission and clear the initial tutorial. But something that you need to know is that your initial ship that you start with, this Corvette, they're fantastic for getting used to the game because they're free. If you die in one, you just dock up in a station, you'll get a new one. You don't really have to worry about the expense of replacing these, but they're not very hardy and they don't deal a lot of damage. You can fit them once you have better fitting skills in ways that will make them fight above their weight class. But really what you're eventually going to get into is a combat frigate and eventually into destroyers and larger classes of ships. You typically, in most ship fittings, will have some sort of propulsion module, whether an afterburner or a micro warp drive. You'll have some sort of survivability modules added on, either it be armor or shield buffer, some sort of extra padding against incoming damage, or some way to recover health, like an armor repair or shield booster, some sort of damage mitigation, whether it be something which increases your resistance to damage, like a damage control. And you'll have utility modules like data analyzers or other modules that are useful for the type of activity that you want to engage in. It's not always advisable to carry all your modules with you in your ship. Typically leave those in a station that you'll go back to on a regular basis. And when you undock, you typically want to take just those things that you really want or are really useful for the mission that you're going to be engaging in. Now you can see the average value of the ship based on how it's fit now is about 50,000 ISK. This is not a lot of ISK, but it can seem like a lot of ISK when you're just getting started, and the payout from your various missions is not very high. If we take a look at my opening wallet here, we can see I've already purchased some stuff. I got some bounty prizes from killing some pirates. But, you know, your average bounty prize will run between 60,000 ISK up to maybe a couple of million at higher levels as you start to advance. Now, when I say higher levels, there really isn't levels in EVE. It's competency and the difficulty of different sites. So as your skills grow, as you become more aware as a pilot, not your character's skills and training, but your own actual ability to use a keyboard and mouse and, you know, fly and operate in this game, your ability to understand how things work, you're able to try to do more and more complicated or more and more risky or dangerous things. And as you do these things, as you engage in these activities, you'll make a profit. You'll start taking in money, whether that come in the form of player versus environment bounty prizes. So money that basically the space government pays you for taking care of cleaning up the trash and taking out the pirates, basically killing the rats. In EVE Online, we call mobs or NPC enemies rats. Why? Because killing rats doesn't sound so bad. Rats are kind of dirty, and they're kind of a they're kind of a nuisance in most cities. Not to say that there aren't species of rats that are very intelligent, or that rats don't make great pets. I'm not saying making any kind of judgments against rats as an animal species. I don't want Peter or whatever knocking on my door. I have friends who keep fancy rats as pets. I'm sure they're wonderful creatures, but the general stereotype, the mental picture you get is that they're dirty, filthy things that infest areas. And the same is sort of the take-in of pirates and things which will return a bounty in the game EVE Online. So killing PvE NPCs, talking about them as PvE NPCs, that's a lot of letters to say. We just simplify it by calling it ratting. And when you go ratting, when you kill things in a PvE environment, you are getting bounty prizes. And I can tell you that as your skills grow and as you mature, not only your skills, but the skills of your character and your character's ability to fly ships and fit skills and fit different modules. As those fitting skills grow, you're going to be able to fight more and more powerful rats. And the benefit from this is that the bounty prizes go up and up and up. And you can very, very easily, with some very basic cruiser fits, make several 100 million ISK in a day's time. So if you're somebody who's got a full weekend to yourself, or your kids are out of the house, or you're a university student and you've got loads of time to just do some barely paying attention to the screen passive ratting while you study or while you're cramming for something, if you're a day trader and you can afford to have something going on a second screen while you're watching stocks, then you can actually do very, very well for yourself if you have the time to have a game client open and running, and be paying the occasional passive look at it. I mean, really, the amount of attention that you need to give this game once you actually know how to play it, when you're not active in a fleet or you're not actively trying to kill other people's characters, the amount of attention you need to give the same game is really about the same amount of attention you need to give a pot of simmering porridge. It's really not a lot of effort. And while CCP does a wonderful job of making this game, and they're constantly trying to balance it and give it challenges and passes on the development so that it does present more of a challenge, the thing is that you can only increase the strength and complexity of the environment's threats to such a point where you start to lose the player base. And every game, no matter how good and how complex or how challenging has to have grind. It's got to have a little bit of grind. You have to have a way to make money. You have to have a way to make money that isn't so laborious that the benefits outweigh or fail to outweigh the time invested in doing it. So that's where the grind comes in Eve. Is a lot of the time it's ratting, it's mining, it's doing things that provide a reliable income for the time you trade invested in the game. So I digress here. We're going to get back into the game and go through the rest of these levels here. But I want to tell you, as a new player, don't focus so much on your wallet, because part of this video series where I play through the new player experience and the initial missions and show you some of the things that you can do to make money, the purpose for this is to show you that you can grow this very, very quickly, and it's not very hard. So, 50,000 ISK for a ship, where most of the price of that is in 1 or 2 modules. Honestly, after a little bit of time, the idea of losing a ship is going to be a minuscule weight on your attention. And I promise, if you stick with this game, if you learn how to play it, if you become a part of the community and talk with other players and get involved, you will find this game to be very rewarding. Or you may not. There's a lot of people for whom Eve is not the game to play. It doesn't match their playstyle. It doesn't interest them. There's a lot of other games that you may play in addition to Eve. But the thing I find most rewarding about Eve is that it does require a little bit of thought. The community is incredibly awesome. And there are some genuine challenges in this game. The kind of challenges that make you pull your hair out. Which I will jokingly tell you is why I shave my head. That and kids. So let's get back into this. Now, I am a subscribed player, and I have subscribed on this character. So this character is an Omega character, which means that there are no skills which are barred from me, and I train at regular speed rather than the half speed that new alpha clone players train at. And we can see here, I have a friend here, Becker Bad Credit, who has also undocked and appears to be a new bro as well. So from here, this being a new bro system, I'm just going to follow Aura's instructions, and I'm going to set destination to the system where I have to go. I can see here by what we call the yellow brick road, or the gate, which has turned yellow as part of my destination, that it's asking me to jump into the next system. So this thing here is your route, or route. The route is telling me to go through to Allen 10, which is the next system from Citadel, and how you can see your route. If you want to see how many jumps away something is, there will be a number of boxes, and they'll be colored according to the security of the system that you're in. Those boxes and that route to show you how far you have to travel can be displayed by clicking on the A icon up here at the left. So at the top left, you'll find a sun icon, which is the solar system info. You'll find an A icon, which is for your route. And then you'll find a operations info panel, which will cover things like your current operations for new play. Now, the other thing that can happen as well is that you can expand and collapse the route, and by clicking on individual constellation name or system or region names in the route, you can see the details about those systems. The other thing that can happen is that you can hide these. So if you don't want to see that information, if you want to collapse those panels, or that information is not interesting to you, or it's not relevant for a video that you're recording, you can go ahead and hide that information. Just kind of cut down on your visual clutter. So from here, I've set my destination. I have this little yellow highlight telling me that's the Stargate I need to go through. When I click on the Stargate, you can see it's been highlighted by a bracket. This bracket is the thing that tells me that's the way I should be facing. Now, if I wanted to look at that gate, if I didn't know where that was relative to where I am now, I could right click on it and say look at, and it will automatically turn my camera in that direction. Now, if I want to warp to it, I have a few options. I can align towards it, which will turn my ship in that direction. You can see this blue arrow from my tactical overlay is indicating my approximate acceleration and direction. The longer that arrow becomes, the faster I am going, and the closer it becomes to the route or the direction of travel that I'm supposed to go, the more aligned I am. Now, in order to go to warp, you have to be traveling at least 75% of your maximum speed, and you have to be facing the right direction. The moment both of those things are true, you can enter warp. So now if I hit warp 2, because I'm pre-aligned to it, I will automatically go into warp. Now, I don't want to do that because Aura wants me to start by using my autopilot. I will say right now, bad Aura. Very, very bad. Bad Aura. You should know better. Your advice is bad, and you should feel bad. And the reason for that is that the autopilot does a few things which new players aren't aware of. The autopilot system goes back a very long time. The code in it is very, very old. And the thing that it does is that when you turn it on, it will automatically warp you to the gate and jump through for you. The disadvantage is that when it warps you to the gate, it will take you within 10 kilometers of the gate rather than warping you to 0, which is a problem because in high sec, that is, and in low sec and null sec, it's extremely dangerous, but in high sec, it gives the opportunity to gankers to intercede and get in between you and the gate and try to bump you off to prevent you from jumping through, so that if they're there to gank you, they can do that. And yes, gankers, the activity of killing other players in high security space where the police will respond and destroy their vessels, the purpose of ganking is to grieve you. It's to try to get some sort of value from your ship. Often they go after industrialists because these are ships that are carrying items of value. And here you can see, yeah, I landed within 10 kilometers, actually 14 kilometers of this gate. So now what I have to do is called slow boating. I have to basically pilot towards that gate. I have to get within 2,500 meters or 2.5 kilometers before I can jump through. So this whole 20 seconds or so between warp time and then having to get close to the gate, while I can't be targeted until I exit warp, this is an extra 10 or 12 seconds that it takes me to jump through this gate that I don't really need to be spending. If I had just warped directly to this gate, I could jump right away. So using the autopilot is just bad. I don't recommend it. It puts you in a place where you can end up in danger, where you can end up attacked. You are much better to just be paying attention and click jump next system. Just keep clicking the jump button. So come in here and click jump, and each and every time you click jump, it will automatically warp you to that gate and jump you through. So now I'm in the L10 system where it wanted me to go, and I have a warp to location beacon. So when I click on that, my ship is automatically going to come out of gate cloak, align towards location, and then you can see once I hit 75% of maximum speed, automatically throws me into warp. Now, I will talk for a second about gate cloak. Each time you jump through a gate, you come out on the other side in a state of limited invulnerability that lasts for 60 seconds. In that 60 seconds, you cannot be bumped, you cannot be shot, you cannot be targeted, you cannot be the effective area of effect damage, you cannot be killed in that 60 seconds. But the moment...
You should consider yourself lucky, recruit. Even though the Galente Federation is vast and contains hundreds
the
of
moment
systems,
you target something, move, or activate a module, you become decloaked.
Not only that, but you were on your way to becoming an independent capsuleer, able to pilot your own ships. That's a very special status, recruit. Earn it. Here we are, recruit. You're about to take a step into a dead zone. No pilot in your position has ever been allowed to enter a place like this. The fact is, these sites are always placed in some of the strangest and most obscure areas of New Eden. And in fact, I have no idea what you are about to encounter here. Keep your eyes open.
Ooh, dead space.
Captain, you should now approach the gate. When you are close enough, hold down your left mouse button on the gate and select Activate from the radial menu.
So dead space is just a fancy way of saying an instanced occurrence of a combat anomaly in space. Combat anomalies are not instance dungeons in the same way as something like World of Warcraft, where you go in and then you're alone in there. This is more of a, hey, there's a travel to location with a beacon that you can then enter and engage in combat against PvE characters or NPCs. If I go into my scanners and I open my probe scanner, even before I know what the probe scanner is and how to use it, I can see up here at the top left that I have this menu, and there are these green things. And these green things are combat sites. You can tell here by the icon next to the name, and when I mouse over it, it tells me that this is a combat site. Now, I am not presently at a combat site. You can see that this is an unmarked dead space site at an acceleration gate way over here outside of the orbit of these two planets, almost as far out as the far planets, and I can I'm at that gate now, so I'm way over here. Basically, I'm heading over this way, and oh, sorry, that's not actually over there. I am here. So, anyways, this system, or this dead space system here, this location that I am at, is not part of these, and I can enter this gate. Now, in order to enter the gate or slide this gate, because this acceleration gate operates in the same way, basically, as a specialized, warp drive. It's going to point me to a location in space, and it's going to give me the ability to warp to that location. So it's basically handing my ship coordinates that I can warp to and get to. And these other sites, sorry, going back to the probe scanner, these combat anomalies are basically the same thing as what I'm about to enter. The difference being that this one is part of the new player experience, so it's not going to show up to other players. Now, if I want to get to that gate sooner, because, well, it's like 20 kilometers away, I'm just going to turn on my afterburner to get there a little bit faster.
Warp drive active.
Ooh, that was fancy. They added a new animation for the acceleration gate where it changes colors when you activate it. That's pretty cool.
This is worse than I expected. Another fleet destroyed? The drifters have been allowed to go too far. I need to know what happened here. We had no word at all that a fleet was in combat at this location. All I know is there should be a Sisters of Eve outpost there. Let's hope it's intact and hold some answers. Make your way to it now, but stay alert for hostiles.
Captain, continue to approach the info shard. We need you to be within close proximity. Remember to stop your ship when you reach the shard.
So this is kind of cool. We have the remains of a data site and a Sisters of Eve battleship, the Nestor. We have the remains of some larger ships which have been fighting. A couple looks like a fax and a destroyer, a force auxiliary, a force auxiliary and a dreadnought, and bits and pieces of other ships here, just kind of scattered around from this battle. Looks like a Megathron over here. A few different ships around, and as part of this, story event, here we've been sent to investigate what has happened here. What was the cause of this? Oh, and over there we have an Amar Titan wreck. Titans are the biggest ships in EVE Online. They are absolutely massive. An intact Amar Titan laid out over top of New York City is as long as the entire island. It's incredible how large these ships are. Basically, imagine flying cities, and that's pretty much what you get when you fly a Titan. These are the big ships that are always advertised in the news. When you hear about Titanic space battles in EVE, it's the Titans. These, if you were to do a conversion from real world money into in-game currency, so you were going to buy some in-game currency with real world money, and you wanted to buy enough currency to be able to purchase a Titan, you'd basically have to spend about $2,500 US. So they are huge investments in time and resources. Just buying one out of the gate wouldn't do any good because it takes about a year and a half to a year to train the skills to even sit in it to fly it. And that's just a huge expense there. And really, as a new player, if you don't know how to play this game and you go and jump right into a Titan, you're not going to know what to do with it anyways. So there is some definite upskill has to happen in order for you to make use of that, and even have the wherewithal of understanding where its place in the game is, how it fits, and when to use it. So part of experiencing this game and part of growing in it is that you slowly gain this knowledge over time. And really, that's the role of people like me. My job is to be here to help you.
Recruit, your sensor feed is showing some strange signatures circling the outpost, but I can't get a clear image. Can you see anything unusual around the outpost? Maybe the drifters are generating interference. Watch yourself. You're my only set of eyes and ears out there.
Captain, for your ears only. I am afraid the drifters may have hacked our outpost. That could give them access to ship FTL comms and navigation systems we've been developing. Theoretically, it might give them access to some of the ships we've installed prototypes in. It looks like our outpost is relatively intact. You are going to have to try to hack into its mainframe to extract some information on what happened here. Be careful.
Captain, if the outpost is still intact, it will have to be hacked. It's a good thing you prepared by bringing a data analyzer. Hacking is a delicate process, but mastering it can give you access to a lot of wealth in some of the deep and hidden pockets of New Eden. Let me walk you through the process. Captain, you should now lock target on the info shard. You should now activate the civilian data analyzer on the info shard.
So here you can see what I've done is I've set myself to orbit this. Now there are some data sites in EVE that when you hack the canister, if you fail at the hacking minigame, the container will explode if you fail twice. Some of the containers that you attempt to hack in EVE, when they explode, deal damage in an area of effect. And if you are inside that area of effect, which you pretty much have to be in order to use the data analyzer, your ship dies or takes a significant amount of damage. Now, thankfully, this is a beginner site, so this is not one of those canisters that will explode when I hack it. But if I fail the hack, I have the potential of losing the contents of this can. Now, because this is, again, a beginner site, I'm not really worried about that, so I'm just going to show you how this works. So in order to use the data analyzer, you have to be inside of 5,000 meters. The biggest reason I'm orbiting is just because A, it looks cool, and B, when you're in a small, fragile ship, being in motion makes it harder for people who want to shoot at you to hit you. So never just sit still on something. So when you engage the data analyzer, you're going to immediately start this little hacking minigame. So basically we're going to uncover these nodes as we go through to identify the location of the system node that we want to hack, or the system core, so that we can gain the data that's held by the system. Along the way, we will find encrypted nodes, and these encrypted nodes may contain useful tools or algorithms to help us continue through our path, utility applications and antivirus programs, or they may contain system defenses. Now, this number that's represented when I click on these, you saw the number 5. That means I am 5 nodes, or I'm fifth node away from an object that I can interact with, whether that be a system defense, a utility application. And here we go, 5, 5, 5, 4. So now I'm within 4 of something. Now there is something called the rule of sixths, sixths, sixths. And how that works is that if you have 6 nodes in a circular orientation like this, the middle one is almost never going to have a system defense in it or a threat. But as you get to the outside, this is where you're most likely going to encounter some sort of defense or other objects. Now, as I clicked through these, it was getting closer. It went 4, 3, 2, 1. So now within one of these 4 will be either the system core or an application or a utility or a system defense. Okay, so there we got it. I got it from the first try. Now I can go ahead and try to uncover the rest of these to see if there's anything of use here. Now, this being a starting mission, they've gone and thrown a single threat in here. And this is a system defense firewall. So this is a subsystem. As I attack it, you can see my health has gone down. So this is my virus coherence. It determines how much damage you can take before you fail your hacking attempt. Now that I've defeated it, I can attack this virus. But I need to have at least 20 coherence and 10 strength to defeat this. So I need to be able to hit this thing and have enough health to survive it.
Now you have successfully hacked into the info shard. You should retrieve the cargo.
So now that we've hacked this, one of the things that you'll see happens is that canisters you've successfully hacked or relic containers that you've used a relic analyzer on will change if they are a moving object like this. Eventually what will happen is that these rings will settle out into a single broad band. This is to indicate to you as sort of a visual cue that you've already hacked this container. Now I can go ahead and open it. And again, to open a container, you have to be within 2,500 meters of it to open it and loot it. I can see now I have an unknown sequence. I can click loot all, or I can just drag it to my hold.
What in the name of... The site just lit up like Crystal Boulevard. Professor Tanner, have you ever seen anything like this? Is this your tech?
No, Fleet Commander. I have never seen anything like this before. I suggest the captain get out of there as fast as possible.
No question about that, Professor. Recruit, our tripwire sensor net just picked up a giant drifter fleet on course for your location. I don't know what you just activated, but it's calling up a storm. She may only be a scientist, but I agree with the professor's assessment. Get out before that storm arrives.
Click the location marker icon in the info panel to travel to a safe spot.
So here they're telling you to get used to warping out of dangerous situations to a spot in space which is not near a planetary body or not near a celestial object like a space station. And the purpose of that is to get you off grid, get you away from a threat that is inbound or present with you on the field of combat, so, within physical range of you, where you might be engaged and potentially damaged or even destroyed. So use of safe spots, and safe spot is a very common phrase in EVE Online, is basically just going somewhere where you're away from threat.
Recruit, if I hadn't seen you pull off some impressive stunts already, I'd suspect you of being some kind of double agent. What you've uncovered here is a feast of intelligence. The data that you just extracted looks like it includes key codes to activate the jump gate to the Drifter Hive's location. If you can get these to our fleet, we could use them to unlock the gate to the Hive. You are going to be the toast of the fleet.
Captain, congratulations on finding the Drifter Gate codes. That is amazing work. The Drifters must have been trying to link our outpost to their network through that gate. But there's something else that worries me. I navigated through some of the data when you brought me the mainframe online, and it's worse than I thought. I suspect the Drifters may have hijacked one of the capital ships carrying our prototype systems. in their hands and poses a great threat. Luckily, the ship may be vulnerable to stasis webbing. It could slow it down to a halt. Captain, I'm gonna upload to Aura instructions on how to fit your ship with a stasis webifier the next time you're in station. That will improve your capabilities out there.
Recruit, our comms keep getting blocked by Professor Tannen. I hope you're extracting some useful intel on the drifters and not indulging in gossip about holo actors. No, but seriously, I want to show you something. I'm sending Aura some coordinates. Get there soon, Recruit. I think you're going to like this.
Captain, the commander has uploaded the location of the forward operating base. This should prove interesting.
Okay, so we've been given a couple of things here.
Icon in the info panel to travel to the forward operating base.
The first of these is that the scientist has offered to give us instructions for fitting up a stasis webifier, which is an offensive module that goes in a mid slot. So where we currently have our data analyzer, these are your high slots, these are your mid slots, these are your low slots. Fitting a stasis webifier. Stasis webifiers, this is your fitting tool so that we can browse through modules. If we go to hardware and we type in the word stasis, we see stasis webifiers, and look at that, there's a civilian one. So if I drag one of these into the space occupied by my ship, it will take my ship into what we call a ghost fitting mode. I can also enter this simulation mode by clicking up here. So now we're looking at a wireframe of my ship on a virtual field, and anything I do now, like unfitting modules and fitting on modules I do not presently have, I can see what the changes in the use of my CPU overhead and my power. And I can do things like add on other modules. So if I wanted to see how much my DPS improves by adding another 125mm railgun, I can do that as well. So right now I'm getting 16.8 DPS. I'm going to now add in another 125mm railgun. Now the quickest way to find that railgun is to clear my search for items, right click on this and say find type in browser. So now that I've found that type in the browser here, I can go ahead and just drag another into the fitting space. And if I want to find the ammunition to use so that it fills both guns rather than just the one, there's a couple ways I can do that. I can open up my cargo hold, and I can drag that same ammunition on there. Or I can click on charges and then click my weapon type. And from there, I can drag from the ammunition out to the fitting area. So for example, right now I can see with two of these guns, I'm getting almost 26 DPS. If I want to see how that changes when I load in uranium, I can just drag that out. Now, antimatter on these railguns gets a range of about 10 kilometers maximum. Here I'm going to add on uranium charges and see what that does to range and damage. So I can see my DPS has dropped about 4 or 5 DPS, but now I have a maximum range of 12 kilometers. I can also see what happens when I fit something like a damage control, which will increase my resistances to damage. And there we can see that my damage resistances have gone up just a little bit, which has the net effect of increasing my effective hit points. It adds a small boost to my shield HP, my armor HP, and my structure HP or hull. And together, the effective hit points is how many hit points is it going to take to overcome your resistances and wear away at your base armor, shield, and hull. So essentially, what is the total amount of damage needs to be done to you in order to blow you up? The purpose for the stasis webifier, this one here, is that it reduces a ship's velocity by a percentage. Now, civilian stasis webifier is terrible it only reduces ship velocity by about 35%. But basic damage controls, stasis web of fires will increase that effect pretty much exponentially. So yeah, a stasis web of fire 1, 50% reduction. As you improve your skills, stasis web of fire 2, 60% reduction. And there are faction and storyline or officer stasis web of fires, which are quite a bit more expensive, that will greatly improve that efficiency. And some ships gain bonuses for the use of certain modules. And so there are ships in the game that gain a bonus to the effectiveness of their stasis web of fires. The purpose of the stasis web of fires is to slow the other ship down, not to prevent them from going to warp or warping away from you, but to, when you are engaging them in combat, slow them down so that your guns can apply more of their damage. It basically makes them easier to hit. Alright, let's follow these instructions. I've talked enough.
Warp drive active.
So first we're going to warp to this forward operating base and see what this military commander wants to show me.
Approach the gate. When you are close, use the radial menu to activate the gate to enter the forward operating base.
Oh wow, so they've parked us down here next to a station and an acceleration gate. So you see this blue effect, this glow between these between the stanchions of this acceleration gate. This beam running between them, that power beam, never used to look that detailed, and this sort of glowing light effect was never quite this this prominent. And now when you activate the gate, this changes color to indicate to orange, to indicate that you're actually using it and that it's going to send you somewhere. This is new. I've only just seen this recently, so this is really cool. So activating the acceleration gate throws you out to a new location, and here we are landing on a military-controlled Astra House. Astra Houses really are cities in the sky. They are Upwell structures.
Behold, a swift spearhead of the Galente Federation. Our fleet. The strike force that will take the fight to the drifters. Dreadnoughts, battleships, cruisers, and frigates are all being prepared for action at our Ostrahus Citadel forward operating base. All soon to be equipped with the gate key codes you recovered, which will land our fleet in their front yard. Recruit, I don't usually do this, but it's going to take a few minutes to upload the jump gate keys from your mainframe. I suggest you fly down there and introduce yourself. The way a few of the captains have been talking, you're a lucky charm, and I'd like that luck to rub off. And enjoy the perspective while you can. If you make Naval Capsuleer, you might command any one of these ships someday. I can tell you they're even more interesting when you're in control. Aura, help our favorite recruit get a clear sense of the power on display before us.
Is this him? Is this a pilot that saved the research crew and found the gate codes?
Captain, the assembled strike force includes several ship classes you'll often encounter in New Eden.
Damn, recruit. Took me 6 months before I posted my first confirmed kill.
You can take a closer look at any of the ships by using the radial menu to select Look At. Remember to refocus your camera by right-clicking and select Look at my ship.
So what she's telling you to do here is mouse.
Fly over and join the battleship group on parade in front
Shut
of
up,
the
Aura.
Citadel.
What Aura's telling you to do is mouse over any one of these, hold down your mouse button, and then choose Look At. And that's just a handy way to zoom in on these various ships. So here we have some combat frigates. This is the next ship you're going to jump up into, basically. Then we have some logistics frigates. These ships are used to repair other ships in combat. They're basically healers. Here we have a different class of combat frigate. These guys here gain a bonus to their turrets, and they're very, very effective. These other guys in the background here, these are a little bit faster, a little bit more mobile. These guys are a little beefier. These ships, Molluses, these are electronic warfare ships. So these are ships that provide bonuses against enemy weapon systems. Basically, they help to make the enemy less effective so that you can kill them easier. And these are exploration frigates. So these are frigates that are used for hacking, research, data science, those kinds of things. Exploration. And this is your little tiny Corvette starter ship, little dinky ship. Now, as we move through the fleet, and you can see here that I've hidden the heads-up display, I've hidden the overview, because all those brackets and extra things really just get in the way, especially with all the lights of the Asterhus forward operating base here. This is an Upwell structure. They are the cities in the sky. Yes, they are really this pretty, and they are gigantic. If we look at it a little closer, we can see all of these lights here. All of these lights are little civilian vessels and utility vessels, repair ships, flying back and forth around the city, essentially just going about their business and performing routine repairs or moving goods, or people commuting to and from work. But yeah, this is a city in the sky. And this is the smallest of the three types of Upwell Citadels. Now, moving back to your ship here, we have some other ship types to look at. These are destroyers. These are the Catalyst Destroyer. These get a bonus to turrets. We can also see several other types of ships here. These guys are cruisers. As are the Vexor. You will become very familiar with the Vexor, I promise you, in the course of playing EVE. These are probably, bar none, the best PvE ship in the game. This is the fly and forget weapons combat platform, where you're going to basically use drones to do all of your damage, or the majority of your damage. They are also very capable as turret boats, and really, they're just fantastic for PvE, because you basically throw your drones out, tell your drones to go kill something, orbit something in space where the targets are, and you leave it alone until they're all dead. So you'll see pretty much every ratting for income video out there, including my own, will tell you to train into something like this, although you are not strictly restricted to using the Vexor. They're just fantastic for that job. Now, also in this spread, we have some executors over here. These are also cruisers. These guys here are often used for logistics, although the Navy version of them is quite nasty as well. Some Myrmidons. These are lovely battle cruisers, fantastic for dealing damage. These are basically the big brother of the Vexor. They are a drone bonus platform for dealing damage. Some Brutuses, or Brutixes. What is the plural of that? Brutixi? Bruti? Anyways, these are also quite nasty. Then there's the fat baby mama of the Vexor. This is the Dominix. It is the biggest drone platform. This is a battleship. Going bigger than this, basically you're getting into carriers where you have fighters, which are squadrons of basically much bigger drones, piloted by actual human beings as opposed to automated systems. And Hyperion battleships. These are a lot of fun. You see these used quite a bit in incursions. Megathrons, probably the fleet favorite of all New Bro organizations everywhere. They deal a lot of damage. They get a lot of armor. They're, quite a nasty little ship, and they look sexy as hell. I mean, look at this thing. It's like somebody married a race car to a bodybuilder and then gave it a bunch of guns. So yeah, here we have a real show of power from the Gallente Navy. And as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, we're going to go to two of the most iconic ships in EVE, the Thanatos Carrier and the Nyx Supercarrier. This thing is so iconic that CSP Games contracted another manufacturer, an actual games and models manufacturer, to build a floating lamp model version of this that would levitate magnetically over a base, and it would light up with little fiber optic lights all the way around it, and it would just look freaking cool, all lit up and floating all above its little base. Thing about the size of a turkey platter. Only that developer screwed the pooch and they weren't actually able to launch it, and there was a big debacle and they had to return everybody's money. Really not a good thing for CCP, but it was so cool. It was such an awesome opportunity. I wish they had not failed and had been able to pull it through. Definitely one of the most iconic ships in EVE Online. It's immediately recognizable by anybody who's ever played the game or looked at the game or researched it in any way. I mean, this is really one of the most famous ships out there when it comes to EVE, and it's kind of like it's a real synecdoche, kind of an example of the design aesthetic of EVE Online. It's big, it's impressive. It looks like it's designed to deal a lot of damage. They're absolutely huge and really quite nasty. And then here we have a Morose Dreadnought. The Morose is one of the more fun dreadnoughts to fly. And you can see it's got a little escort squadron of fighters here. These ships go into a siege mode, which basically prevents them from moving very quickly or receiving assistance from the outside, but greatly increases their survivability and the damage they're able to deal. These things are the siege platforms of EVE Online, and every race has their own flavor of dreadnought. And here we are, back to our dinky little ship. So I'm going to turn the heads-up display back on and fly us through it to follow through on Aura's instructions. So now it's saying, approach the Hyperion-class battleship.
Hey, recruits. Our crew's been talking about you non-stop today.
All right, fleet, calm down. Our hero of the hour is going to stick around while we upload the key codes from his ship. Then the Federation has a special surprise for him back at base. The Gallente take care of their heroes. Am I right, fleet?
Captain, the upload is going to take a while. In the meantime, take a look at our Astrahus forward operating base. It's a Citadel-type structure. Citadels are the biggest structures in New Eden that capsuleers can build. These massive cities are quite the sight to look at. Since you have to kill some time while the key codes are uploading to the fleet, you have a perfect opportunity to practice some of your maneuvering skills. You can try manual piloting by double-clicking anywhere in space, or you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard for a unique piloting experience. When you are ready, fly to the forward point, next to the Dreadnought-class vessel.
Now, as I said in the last video, piloting in EVE Online is less an experience of like playing TIE Fighter, where you're, in the pilot's seat, flying around, joystick style to navigate. It's more like commanding a spaceship in Star Trek, where you're the captain and you give the ensign some instructions, or the whoever's in the chair, you give them instructions on where to fly, and they follow your orders. So orbit orders like orbit that ship at a distance of 500 meters, and your ship's crew, they do their job, and immediately you begin orbiting. Now, the difference between this happening on a human piloted ship, or a crewed ship, and a ship which is crewed or commanded rather by a capsuleer, is that capsuleers are functionally immortals. They are human beings who have been cybernetically modified and cloned, and their experiences, their memories, their knowledge are constantly being synced with other clones, so that on the event of their death, they immediately wake up in another location with all the memories that they had up until the last sync point, and they're functionally reborn brand new in a new body. They are immortal. And part of their cybernetic enhancements is that they have the ability to interface with their ship, so that all of the ship's sensors, telemetry, metrics, the details about how fast the ship is moving, everything else, all enters their brain, and they experience the ship as an extension of their own body. Now, they still need crews. They need people to, take care of the daily maintenance and loading of ammunition and fuel and, repairs, those kinds of things on the ship. But the crew complements are much, much smaller. So when you're a capsuleer and you are in a ship, and your ship explodes, yes, you have a crew, and that crew died. But capsuleers are so incredibly wealthy compared to the average person living in New Eden, the average person in the Eve universe, that those crews, while being much smaller than a normal ship's complement, are often paid insanely well, and they did not die for nothing. Their families will benefit from that wealth. So, a lot of people have this thought that capsuleers are these cruel overlords, and really, in a lot of cases, they really, really are. They're often seen as detached, inhuman beings who are motivated entirely by self-interest, which kind of reminds me of most modern politicians, but nevertheless, really you're operating in a place where you've got a lot of wealth and you can do a lot of good, but it's very, very likely that, most people, when signing up to crew on a capsuleer vessel, they're doing it for the money. They're there because they know that if they die, when they die, very likely they will die, their family, their great-grandchildren will be able to live off of the proceeds from their death. So, it is a grim world, this New Eden. Going back to the piloting thing, if you want to take over the first player view, you can totally do that. You can see I've slowed my ship down. If I take over first player view, it puts me in the cockpit. Now I can speed up, and then I can use my keyboard up, down, left, and right commands to pilot my ship. But this is extremely inefficient in combat. You can't see necessarily where your enemy target is. If you engage in, turning on your weapon systems, you're not going to see your shots landing. You're not going to see if you're applying effectively, except if you've got a target selected and you see the impact on their hit points. Really, what this format for the first-person camera is for, and they give you the keyboard commands right here, the key bindings. What this is for is to give you the opportunity to do this. Do these cinematic flybys where you have the chance to see, what's happening in space, to see the landmarks, to look at the fancy, things that the art department has done. It's really the opportunity to engage in an immersion, engage in the immersive elements of this game and really experience the universe through a different set of eyes. But I can tell you that 99.9% of the time that you're playing this game, you will not use this interface, because really most people have no reason to. It's not how you play the game. There's not a huge focus on it, and if CCP changes that, that might be nice, but really the way this game plays out, this just isn't the style of play for this game. So I'm going to go back to the orbit camera, which is this one here. And this is what allows me to stay centered on my ship when I'm in combat. And now the other way to pilot is, rather than using the keyboard and mouse, is just to aim in space, double click, and your ship will turn around all on its own. You've basically told your crew, hey crew, go that way. And you start piloting in that direction. And if you want to change that order, or you want to change those instructions, you're essentially just yelling at your comms and at your bridge crew, change course to this direction, and they will do their best to comply. And continuing to double click in space changes your manual piloting. Now, manual piloting is very important in this game, especially in PvP. There are a lot of ship types that you really, to be effective, need to know how to pilot manually like this well. You need to understand the response time of your ship and the speeds that you're able to travel. You need to be able to understand how to head in on people and how these vessels move respective to one another when they're actually engaged in combat, because manual piloting can give you the ability to do things like stay out of people's effective weapons ranges. Whereas if you're simply relying on keep at range and orbit, you won't win based on that alone. Like, it's very unlikely that you're going to survive a lot of battles if you don't engage in at least some manual piloting. And there's a lot of players who never really get good at it. They never really understand it. They never engage with it. They never see the purpose. And really, they're really only hurting themselves in the process. So practicing manual piloting and learning it from other players who know how to do it and do it well will serve you in your EVE career.
Alright, recruit. The upload is complete and the fleet is almost war ready. But while the last preparation steps are going down, I'm going to suggest you return to base and pick up that special item I was talking about a minute ago. Sounds good, doesn't it? Trust me, it's better than you think.
So now we're going to travel back to our base.
When you are ready to return to HQ.
And this time, rather than using autopilot,
Autopilot engaged. Autopilot disabled. When you
I turned on the autopilot just to get rid of that item, but I am going to warp and jump through. The problem with autopilot is that, again, it puts you in a place where you are vulnerable. It changes your ship's behavior in space. You really want to be warping directly to a gate when you're in high sec. When you're in low sec or null sec, you'll typically go about setting up gate pings, which are bookmarks in space, very, very close to a gate respective to the size of space, but far enough away that you can get around any traps and then warp down to the gate. So you'll warp to a bookmark and then warp to the gate when you're in the low sec or null sec, but very useful in high sec to warp directly to a gate. And because I warped directly here rather than using my autopilot, I can just jump right away. And now I'm going to dock at HQ.
Warp drive active.
Now, one of the first things you'll notice when you have weapons fitted, and on different ships there are warp animations that affect the hull of the ship itself, is that the guns will collapse on themselves and lock down for warp. So they stop free ranging or aiming at targets or things that you've selected. They kind of get into a lockdown state for the warp travel, and ostensibly that's to prevent any damage in warp, but or to resist the forces of going into warp. But really, it's a nice aesthetic effect, that's all. And if I stop my ship rather than docking right away, you can see, well, there's the guns. They stand back out and they're ready to engage now. And if I select a target, or if I lock something up, those guns will change direction to aim at the thing that I have engaged.
Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
Recruit, I have very high standards for my trainees, and you have repeatedly exceeded them. I have therefore decided to approve you for participation in the counterstrike against the Drifters. Operation Liberty Spear. Consider this your final test before reaching Naval Capsuleer status. Now, I hope you don't think I'm going to let you go into the line with the trainee's Velator-class Corvette you've been flying around all day. No, recruit. The Galente Federation always takes care of the people who fight for its freedoms. I'm now awarding you with a new ship to participate in my strike operation. I think you are really going to like the added ass-kicking power it brings. I'm also giving you some upgraded modules to fit to it.
Captain, you have been awarded with a new frigate. This ship is a considerable upgrade from your Corvette. Your new frigate gives you far more flexibility in how the vessel is outfitted. For your upcoming combat, I suggest using the afterburner and repair module you have already mastered. Additionally, you have been rewarded with some upgraded modules for your ship, including a few additional weapons. Now, let's go through how we can optimally set up your ship for the combat ahead. Professor Tannen has advised that you fit your ship with a stasis webifier, and you should not take that suggestion lightly, Captain.
Alright, so here Aura is giving you instructions on how to redeem these items. You can do that by accessing your notification feed and then pulling out the individual
By selecting them.
redeem items window, or you can hold down Alt and press Y. That is the keyboard shortcut by default. It will open the redeem items window, and you just say redeem selected items. It'll ask you, are you sure you want to put these in the station? You say yes, and look, they've been deposited.
Captain, it's time to use your new ship. In your inventory, select your ship hangar. There you will see you are currently in your Corvette. Right-click your active ship and click Leave Ship. You should now right-click your new frigate and select Assemble Ship. This will finalize the last preparations and calibrate your vessel so you can pilot it. Right-click your new ship and select Make Active. You have now boarded your new ship.
Now, part of what happens when you assemble a new ship or you get a new ship is that it, by default, names it your character's ship. This is, a good default, but it's bad practice, because then when somebody uses a D-scan, their directional scanner in space, and they see a ship, they see the ship's name too. So if it says, Gwynfor Gabraith's in Cursus, well, they immediately know just by doing D-scan and finding me in range that not only am I in space and undocked, but what type of ship am I in? That's bad, because you don't want to give somebody free intel. You don't want to give them free intelligence about what you're in or what you're doing, what you're capable of. So typically you want to change the name to something which doesn't make it immediately apparent it's your ship. So I'm going to change my name of my combat vessel to Fly on the Wall, which would make people think that maybe I'm just a spy, or I'm flying around, or I'm just here to listen. But basically it doesn't tell them what I'm up to. It doesn't tell them what I'm really up to.
Right-click your old Corvette and select Repackage. This will remove the modules fitted to that ship and make it easier to transport in the future.
So this is the Incursus. This is that combat frigate we looked at earlier out in the fleet display. This is a ship which is much faster than the Corvette that we were flying. It also gets specific combat bonuses for armor repair and small hybrid turret damage. So with the maximum 25 DPS that I was seeing in the Corvette, we're going to see a much higher damage potential out of the Incursus. It also gets a bonus to repair cycles from the armor repair that we had fit, so it's actually going to repair more quickly, and it's a much more effective ship for combat than one of these corvettes. As I said, your first step up is typically going to be into a frigate. It's typically going to be into a combat frigate, and it's not a bad looking ship. And as you can see, this character doesn't have any of the skins for it, but you can get vanity items. You can decorate these with different paint jobs. Some of the nicer ones are like Glittering Dream, which is the name of a nightclub. There's Capsuleer Day. There's Intaki Syndicate. There's Spirit, which makes it look like, kind of this red bloody camo. Black paint job Serpentis here. We have Quaif, which is a bright blue. Quaif in the world of EVE Online it's like Coca-Cola. It's a soda company. The Strategic Materiel skin, which is, kind of a cool design. It's green and gold sort of look. The Copus Edge, which is sort of this, I don't know, sort of royal family or heraldry sort of thing. The Galente are a democratic nation, as it were. They're a big empire where all of the representatives are elected and appointed to their seats. Copus Edge is just sort of a nice kind of, I don't know, throwback to earlier democracies. And then there's things like the Exoplanet's Hunter skin. This is a skin that you can get as a reward for doing some of the citizen science minigame in the game. These skins are also incredibly cheap to buy because everybody's been doing them. So if you want to put some inexpensive customizations on your ship, you want to get some vanity items, this is a cheap one to get in. Now, Aura has suggested that we repackage our old ship, which will automatically strip the fitting and take the modules off. But sometimes you don't want to repackage a ship. You might want to go back and use it later. So you don't want to have to go and reassemble it and then re-add everything to it. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right-click and say Strip Fitting. Which is right above Repackage. And in so doing, it pulls all of the modules off the ship and puts them in the item hanger so that now I can apply them to the new ship. But Aura won't let me proceed until I actually repackage it, so I'm going to do that now. And now she's asking us to fit the new ship, and she has these requirements. So civilian stasis, web of fire, afterburner, damage control, and so on.
You will want to fit weapons, an afterburner, a stasis webifier, and your repair module. To fit them, right-click on each of the modules and select Fit to Active Ship. You should then open your fitting window to ensure you have everything you need fitted to your ship.
Now you can say Fit to Active Ship, like so, but really it's just much easier to drag and drop.
Now load your weapons. Simply drag and drop the ammunition from your item hanger onto your ship to load your weapons. Remember to fill. Before you venture out into space, it would be wise to bring your ammunition with you, Captain.
The fleet is at the gate, recruit. You know the objectives. Destroy the hive, remove the threat. With the Drifter incursion pushed back, the Federal Navy can get back to securing our borders and the freedom of travel for our people. We can't really lose more resources from establishing a proper military containment of the Caldari state. I must say that I'm hoping to learn more about the Drifters from this attack. It's vital to determine why they have been attacking us and removing all survivors. We have lost too many citizens.
You should now undock and click on the location marker icon in the info panel, and then activate your autopilot.
So you can see here I'm moving these turrets around, and all this does is it affects the aesthetics of where the turrets are placed in terms of the hard points around the ship. By adding on my civilian weapon, I can see that my better quality turrets are up top here, and then I have a civilian turret on top. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get rid of the civilian turret and buy another 125mm railgun 1, just to maximize my total damage potential. So in order to buy another one, I'm going to open up the regional market, or Alt-R. I'm going to look for ship equipment, not the blueprint. I mean, I can use the blueprint to build one if I want, but I'm just going to buy a 125mm railgun 1. But gasp, there are none in the station with me. So what can I do? Well, I can buy another gun of the same type and use that railgun on my ship if there's one available. And I can see that there is actually a couple here, and the prices for them are not that high. Normally, a 125mm railgun 1 would be about 21,000 ISK, but I'm seeing some pretty low costs here for the meta versions or other versions of that same weapon. So I'm just going to grab one of these, but it's not in this station. It's a little ways away. It's 3 jumps away. So I check the compressed coil gun here, and I can see this is a railgun. It is the right size. It uses energy and processor. I have more than enough available room. 42,000 ISK, so I'm just going to go ahead and buy one. In fact, what I can do, actually, if I choose, is buy 3. I can unfit my 2 Tech 1 guns. Repackage them. Stack them, and now I can sell them. And if nobody's available to buy it right away, I can set it to sell over a period of 3 months and just sell it. I pay a small fee to list it on the market, but when they sell, I will make money. And now I fit up my 3 new guns. I can see all 3 of these fit on the ship, and all my turret hardpoints are now taken up. Load my ammunition, and now I am dealing 50 DPS compared to the 26 I would have been dealing with 2 weapons on my Corvette. And now I need to fit the rest of my modules, like my civilian armor repair. And if I want to see how effective this armor repair will be, based on the fact that it gets a 7.5% bonus per level of armor repair skill. So right now it's healing 15 HP every 5 seconds. So basically about 3 HP a second. And yes, I can see right there, 2.8 HP per second recovered. Now, there are a couple of other modules I'm going to want to fit. They're not immediately visible here, but one of the things you'll want to add later is an armor plate to add some extra EHP to make your experience more survivable. And there are other low slot modules and mid slot modules you can fit. These spaces over here are for rigs. Rigs are ways of jury rigging your ship. You can modify the systems. Think about how Han Solo is always scurrying with the Millennium Falcon, putting in special tweaks that are just his, that make his ship go a little faster or fly a little tighter when maneuvering. Those kinds of modifications are what go in rig slots. The problem with rig slots is that, with the exception of a couple of ship types, when you remove a jury rigging from a ship, it destroys the jury rigging. Alright, so ready to go now. Now I'm just going to undock. it's telling me that I'm missing modules. I'm going to say I'm going to go ahead anyways because it's looking for a very specific module, but I've chosen a different one. That warning is there to make sure that you haven't forgotten to fit your ship properly. And what we've done is we've actually chosen a different fitting. We've chosen something that we can use. Here I can see there's a miner in system getting ready to take his retriever out and go do some mining. And we are going to set destination to the fight.
When you reach your destination, click on the next location marker in the info panel to travel to the site.
And you can see as part of the warp animation for the incursus, these little side pylons pull in, makes the ship a lot tighter, pulls everything in together, and the guns shrink down in on themselves. They kind of hunker down for warp, and this ship goes pretty fast. Now, the other thing that this ship can do is you can see there's 5 meters cube available for a drone. There's a small drone bay. That's enough room for one light drone. Now, one light drone is not going to make a huge amount of difference in combat. It's not going to add a whole lot of utility. A single drone doesn't do a lot of damage, and it certainly doesn't have a lot of effects with respect to its ability to, apply combat effects like slowing another ship down by webbing it, or, affecting its targeting by disrupting its systems. So E-War drones, a single E-War drone isn't going to make or break a combat for you. One thing which can affect your ability to be effective in combat is whether or not you group your guns. So here I would have to press 3 different buttons or click 3 different times to turn all of my guns on. But there's this little icon here, Group All Weapons. When I click that, it puts them all together on one key, so that when I move this to the first position and I press F1, it turns all 3 of my guns on the same target. Not only does this make it so that you're a lot more effective dealing damage to targets because all of your weapons are firing on the same cycle and they're all firing at the same target, it also makes it easier to manage your ship. The other thing I'm going to do is, even though this is a mid-slot item, I'm going to move it up to the second space here, and the reason for that is because I'm using it offensively, and I really just want to be able to press F1 and F2. So here I have a range of about 11 kilometers and a range of my web within 10, stasis webifier. So I want to use both of these offensively, and I want to keep this guy close as well because I'm going to use the armor repairer in combat. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm not using autopilot to go from gate to gate. I am literally just selecting the location where I'm supposed to go and clicking jump. This will warp me directly to that next gate and then jump me through the gate when I land. Here I can see I've still got 25,000 ISK even after my shopping trip to use. That amount will grow as I kill NPCs and am rewarded with bounties. And now we have the opportunity to warp to the Drifter Hive. Now remember how I said that Citadels are the cities in the sky of EVE Online? Before we go to that Drifter Hive, I just want to show you a couple of the different types of structures in EVE.
Warp drive active.
One of these is the Asterhaus, which you've seen already, or Asterhus, as it were. The Asterhus is sort of the first forward operating base type structure. It is the smallest of the cities in the sky when it comes to, a defensible position. Asterhuses can be fit with defensive, defensive modules, missile towers, and weapon systems. They can point targets, and pointing means to warp disrupt them to prevent them from warping away. They can, provide E-War benefits, but here we have an Asterhus. Each of these different types of icons represents a different type of Upwell structure. So if I wanted to see the next larger size of Citadel in the lineup of Upwell structures, I can then warp to this Fortizar. Now the Fortizar is the next larger size of Citadel. It is the next bigger city in the sky, and it is where you will dock any larger vessels like carriers. So anything up to carrier or dreadnought in size can dock in a Fortizar. Supercarriers and larger ships like supercarriers, I believe, can dock in a Fortizar as well, if I'm not mistaken. But Titans cannot. The only thing Titans can dock in is a Keepstar. So here we have the Fortizar, much bigger than the Asterhus. The Asterhus is about 30 kilometers across. You can see that this bad boy from one end to the other is about 100 kilometers from one end to the other. So it is a huge city in space. The other types of Upwell structures are engineering complexes, which you can think of as like industrial centers. The engineering complex is a type of Upwell structure where, rather than getting benefits in the way of like having a local market set up in it or being used as a defensive outpost or forward operating base, the Raitaru and larger classes, Asbel and Sotiu, are industrial centers. They are places where you build things, and they gain bonuses to building ships, building modules, building other Upwell structures. So if you're going to build a Citadel, you'll build it in an engineering complex. So these are equally large. They're quite impressive unto themselves, but their focus is not, to be a center of commerce or a residence. They are there to be a center of industry. The Refinery is a center for resource extraction. And here we have an Athenor. And the Athenor is presently linked up through a drilling laser. This thing here, it has blasted the surface of this planet with a high power laser and cut a section of rock out of the planet, and is in the process of tractoring up away from this moon to this structure. And what will happen is that when it's within appropriate range, this laser platform will fire up its main gun and blast that piece of rock, this surface of the planet. And this is an animation. This actually does get closer. And when it sits within about 150 kilometers of the structure, it will blast it with a powerful laser and blow it into a temporary mining field, or an asteroid field that can be mined. So that asteroid field, when this piece of planetary surface or lunar surface explodes, you would then end up with some high value minerals that can be mined from the rocks which appear in space as part of the asteroid field which is created. You can then go in and mine those rocks with a mining vessel or a ship equipped with the correct equipment. And this is probably the most lucrative way to make money in EVE, is to engage in mining in mining adventures with people who operate these structures, which is really one of the biggest reasons to get into a corporation in EVE, is earning potentials and the support of other players. So let's go to this warp location.
Warp drive active.
Now, I'm going to cut this video off just after we warp to this Drifter Hive. I'm not going to continue the mission from here. I'm not going to go into the Spatial Rift from here because I'm going to pick this up again on the next video. This video is already an hour and a half long, so you will have to continue in part 3 and see where our adventure leads from here. I'm Jurius Doctor. If you've enjoyed this video or the previous ones, please like the video to let me know that you liked it. Feel free to do the doobly-doo down below and comment in the comment section. Let me know if there's anything you want to see, if there's anything you want me to add, if there's anything that I did too quickly or I was unclear about, or if there's any questions that you have. And just if you didn't like this video, please by all means give me a thumbs down. Let me know. But you know, I can't improve upon what I don't know is broken. So definitely just, you know, hit me up with some details. And if you want to see where this is going, please, you know, feel free to subscribe. And if you think your friends might benefit, if you've got some friends that you're trying to get into EVE with you and you want them to be able to see what kind of experience this is, you want them to kind of share in your excitement about the game, share the video with them. You know, tell them, here's a guy who's making videos that you can follow along to. So thanks very much. I'm Jurius Doctor, and I hope to see you again for the next video.